everybody, this is Macy
and Rachel, and you're listening to the Farmington Public Library podcast, where we keep you in the loop of all the library happenings
and up to date on all the books that should be on your to-read list. The following content does not reflect the views or opinions of the City of Farmington or its employees. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the podcast.
Hey everybody, so today's episode we were going to cover a lot of different topics. We thought we would talk about some stuff related to spring, since it's coming up soon, and we just had Groundhog Day not too long ago, so we have selected titles that have the Groundhog Day theme, and we have some updates on what we're reading, and we also have an extra fun activity that we planned for this episode.
Like always, before we get too far into our book recommendations and book talk for this episode, we want to go over one of the programs that the library has. And like Rachel had said, spring is coming up. We are already at the beginning of March. And so we thought we would talk about the seed library that we have here.
The seed library is something we actually have year-round, but now is a really good time to mention it. We have a card catalog that we used to look up books in, but we've filled it with different seeds that are alphabetized in their little packets, and people can come in and we say borrow those, but we mean you can take them home and use them, but you can also bring in your own seeds from your own garden and to put into the seed library to keep it kind of like a borrow and lend situation. We have a lot of different types of plants. There are definitely flowers and vegetables. I think that Lori also has perennials and annual types of seeds that she puts in there. She does a lot of the upkeep on that, and she knows a lot about gardening. If you guys come in and want to borrow any seeds, you can at any time, and we have a little book that you can write in just what you borrowed so we can replace what we need to. And if you ever want to drop anything off, we take those as well to add to our seed library.
Okay, so as hopefully everyone remembers, a couple weeks ago we were able to do a romantic comedy quiz because romantic comedy is my cup of tea. So I thought it would be interesting if we did the same thing, but did fantasy for Rachel.
Yeah, I will do my best. That's all I've got.
Similarly to when Rachel did the quiz for me, even though we've talked about fantasy books, I don't actually know what all you've read.
Right.
I feel like even if you don't know the book from my description, you will know the book once I say it. Like, you will have heard of it before,
right.
If that makes sense. Got it. It is all books that we have in the library. They're all fairly newer within the last few years.
Okay. How many is it?
I have 6.
6, okay.
Yeah. Some of them are YA. But yeah, so we're going to do, like when I did the romantic comedy quiz, to see if you can guess the title and the author.
Okay.
And then if you can guess the main character, then it's extra points.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so the first one. This book is about a young goddess who one day discovers her own power, is accused of abusing it, and is banished to an island in solitude where she begins to forge her own path as a woman, witch, and goddess. Do you have a guess?
Oh my goodness. Is that one, did you say it was YA?
And this one's not YA.
Okay, maybe a bad guess. Is it a Madeline Miller book? It's Circe? Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow, I have not read that, but
yeah.
So the main character is, obviously.
Yes. Okay.
I do want to read that, though. That has been on my list for a long time.
I have actually read that one.
Have you?
And it's really good. And I didn't know if it qualified as fantasy. However, I saw it on 3 different fantasy lists. So I said, might as well.
I mean, it's like mythology. It's like a section of fantasy, I guess.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. There's so many different branches of fantasy. Okay, the second one.
All right.
This is a YA book. Okay. This fantasy book is about a mortal girl whose parents are murdered and is taken to the Feylands with her sisters, and after many years must form a dangerous alliance in order to save her life and her sisters.
The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Jude.
Yes.
I almost was like, I don't know that book.
Is that a good description of that?
Yeah. I had to think more than I thought I was going to.
Okay. I'm curious to see if you'll know this one.
Okay.
This is an adult fiction book. It's not YA.
Okay.
This book is about a woman who made a deal with a god, resulting in an immortal life, but it came with a price. No one will ever remember her. However, 300 years later, all that changes when a man in a bookstore remembers her name.
Oh, that's a standalone. That's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Uh-huh.
V.E. Schwab.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I don't know the characters at all because I've never read it.
Well, the main character.
Oh, it's Addie. Sorry, that's true.
3 points again. You're
Oh,
doing
man.
really good.
This is like,
We're halfway done.
I'm so nervous for some reason. I know it matters not at all, but like, I'm like, ah.
We're halfway done. Okay, now this next one is a YA book.
Okay.
And I will say, I know for a fact you haven't read it,
Oh, okay.
but you know about it. Because you and I have talked about it quite a few times.
Okay. You give me a lot of hints sometimes, but that's fine too. I'm cool with the hints.
Okay, so this YA fantasy is about a girl who has visions of the mythical fairy king and is given the opportunity to redesign the manner of the author who made the fairy king famous. But while she is staying at the manor with another student, she realizes the myths are more of a reality than she's been taught.
A Study in Drowning.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember the author off the top of my head, and I'm so mad because I can see the cover. I definitely don't know the character name. I want to say like Ava something.
Uh-huh.
It is Ava?
Yeah.
I get half a point. Just declaring that. I can't remember her last name.
It's Ava Reed.
I'm so mad at myself.
And then the main character's name is Effie.
I was like, when you were describing it, I was like, oh, that sounds good, and didn't remember we had talked about it.
Moving on to the next one. This book is about an imprisoned assassin who must defeat 23 similarly skilled prisoners in order to buy her freedom and become the king's champion.
23 other prisoners. Did you say this was
Or
adult
killers of some
adult
kind.
fiction?
It's adult fiction. No, it's YA.
Oh, it's YA.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so familiar, and I should know it, I think. It's like in my brain, but it's not ringing all the bells. Okay, I give up, but I'm going to be sad.
It's Throne of Glass
Oh, okay.
by Sarah J. Maas.
To be fair, I only read the first one, and I don't remember it. So there's that.
Felt like it would have been remiss of me to not put a Sarah J. Maas book in this quiz.
True. And you picked
Yeah.
the one that you knew I probably knew the least
Well,
about.
I couldn't.
That's fair, though. That's fine. I understand.
I couldn't do anything from A Court of Thorn and Roses because that just would have been a dead giveaway. This book is about a young maiden who is forced to trust a mysterious man as their kingdom is falling.
That's the whole description.
But so this young maiden, here I have something else. This young maiden is, and I don't know what this means because I've never read the book, but she's about to like ascend.
Did you say that this one was YA?
No,
It's adult.
a mysterious man who's supposed to guard her. Because since she's the young maiden that's supposed to ascend for...
From Blood and Ash.
Yes.
It's a Jennifer L. Armentrout,
Uh-huh.
and her name is Poppy.
Yes! Look at that!
That was so vague. I was like, that sounds like about 100 books I have read.
I think you did pretty good.
I would
You
say
got all of them except Throne of Glass.
we're probably going on close to like 8 years since I've read that book.
Well, I just wanted to put a Sarah J. Maas book on
Yeah.
here.
No,
and
that's
I
fair.
could not do one of the Court of Thorn
You
and
could
Roses
have,
books.
but I would have gotten it so soon.
All of them. All of them.
So
Except for one.
I would say, based on all my points, that I know what I'm talking about when I say I read fantasy.
I would definitely agree.
feel like my brain is like, oh, I should read some of those ones I haven't yet, because I was like, oh, that sounds good. I know, and also I probably read fantasy descriptions a lot more than
Mm-hmm.
I have time in the day to read the actual book, so I
Well,
kind of get a little bit from,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I want to read that. Oh, yeah, I want to read that, like all the time.
Okay, so now we are going to move on to some Groundhog Day books. Some of these are books we've read, and some of them are books that are on our to be read list currently.
Right. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept of a Groundhog Day novel or Groundhog Day movie, it's basically, you can think of it as a time loop, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of someone just keeps reliving the same day or the same amount of time over and over again, hence the term time loop.
Yeah, which I think originated from the movie Groundhog Day.
I think so.
Because it's that's the concept there. So the first one on our Groundhog Day list is In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. It's been a little while since I've read this book, but if you're looking for a good rom-com style time loop novel, that's a good one I would recommend. It starts out with the main character, and I don't remember her name because it's been a while. She's kind of on a trajectory of her regretting some of her life choices a little bit maybe, and being down on her, I don't want to say down on her luck, but kind of in a sense, which I kind of feel like that might be a theme with some Groundhog Day books, characters, time loop stuff. Anyways, so she is getting ready for the holiday for Christmas, and it's like one of the only things she's looking forward to right now going on in her life. She spends Christmas in Utah every year with her family and then 2 other families that they've been close with for a long time, and it's like a yearly tradition for them. So she like flies out there, and then I think she's leaving the vacation kind of regretting part of that too. And then she gets in an accident, and then immediately it loops back to her being on the plane on her way to the trip. It's a fun read. There's a lot of different days that she does a lot of kind of wacky stuff. Everything works out in the end if you want a happily ever after. I feel like I should be recommending that one to you as somebody who loves that kind of romantic comedy vibe.
Yeah, I've actually only read one book by Christina Lauren, and it's Love in Other Words, which I think is one of her most popular.
Fun fact, Christina Lauren is 2 people.
Really?
Yeah. It's 2 women who write together.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Okay, and then the second one is on my to-be-read list that I've got here. And it was, I think we've talked about it, the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And that was a recommendation from another staff member. I know that it's kind of a mystery / suspense style time loop book. I didn't want to know too much going into it because she recommended it to me almost specifically because of the ending, apparently. I don't know if it's like a little bit shocking maybe, or maybe a little bit controversial as far as like how the story actually ends, and she wanted to know my opinion, so I'm really curious to see what that's about soon.
Yeah, that one has been on my to-read list for quite a while.
Yeah. So. Also, it was partially because I've been, talking about reading more mystery style books this year, so that one's on my hopefully soon to read.
So the most recent book that I've read that had a Groundhog Day theme to it was Maybe Next Time by Seska Major. So like all Groundhog Day novels, it's a time loop type deal. But what happens is that the main character is your typical overworked, busy woman. She's married, she loves her husband, she has 2 kids, she loves her kids. She works as a literary or publishing agent of some kind. But she's just so incredibly run down with just the stress of life and trying to juggle all these different things. Well, in the book, kind of starts out with how her and her husband met way back when. And her husband celebrate 2 different types of anniversaries. They celebrate their actual wedding anniversary, and then they celebrate the anniversary, I believe, on the day that they met.
Okay.
And every year on the day that they met anniversary, they write each other a letter. Well, the last couple years, the main character has been so busy that she's forgotten, and it's just kind of been this bubbling over of this ongoing fight her and her husband have been having. So on their anniversary, she forgets once again, but she acts like she didn't forget, and it makes her husband feel really crummy. So he storms out of the house to walk their dog, and then he dies.
Oh my goodness.
He gets hit by a vehicle.
That's awful.
And dies. And
but I guess the one I said was also an accident, so how that happens.
And that's in the summary.
Okay.
That though it's in the summary, it takes a good fourth of the book to build up to that finally happening. Okay. And then after that happens, she wakes up the next morning and her husband's in bed with her. And it's their anniversary all over again. And she's like, what's going on? But what's different about this book is that a lot of Groundhog Day novels are kind of light and fluffy. Mm-hmm. This one's not. Because she thinks that the universe has granted her the opportunity to right her wrong with her husband, to make sure he doesn't die. But no matter what she does, her husband always dies at the end of the night. And it goes on for months in the book. She has to watch her husband die every single night.
Man.
Yeah, and so it's actually kind of a heavier read.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And there is something that happens in the end that I'm not going to say that kind of makes everything make sense about why it's been so drawn out. It's a really solid ending that will leave you just kind of like, you'll need a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I could tell.
It's a good book, but it's not a light and fluffy Groundhog Day read. It's one of like, let me contemplate my life read. So.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think all three of them so far are fairly different as far as the tone of the
Oh, for sure.
of the stuff. And so all three of those were adult novels, but you had one more that was YA.
Yes. So Rachel Lynn Solomon, who does write some adult fiction, actually has a couple YA books, which I didn't realize that she wrote YA. It's called See You Yesterday. And the main character is a new college student, and she's hoping that college will be this fresh start that she's been looking for. She didn't have a super great high school experience, and so she wants college to be a fresh start. Well, one of her first days of university is terrible, and she like sets up a frat student on fire, and
Interesting.
and is late, I think, to a bunch of her classes, and it's just a horrible day for her. And then at the end of it, she's locked out of her dorm room, so she falls asleep in the common room, and then she wakes up and she's in her bed in her dorm room, and it's the same day all over again. And she is figuring out how to correct the start of what's supposed to be this new season of her life. But what's interesting about this fluffier time loop is that she has to ask someone that's kind of like her sworn enemy for help to fix her situation.
All right, let's just have a few minutes here to talk about maybe some books we've recently finished or are reading or about to read.
What is currently on your nightstand?
Yeah, what is currently on your nightstand, your book pile, if you're me. I actually have a book cart at home.
Oh, do you really?
Is that weird?
No, that's not weird.
And I put all what I think I'm going to want to read next on it because, as we have talked about, I'm a mood reader, so I don't always know what I want to pick up. But yeah, so what's on your nightstand?
So, I have recently been into the series A Court of Thorn and Roses. Rachel and another staff member convinced me to finally read the series, which I have been putting off for a long time, just because it is a super popular series, right? And so because it was popular, I didn't want to read it, which may or may not make sense to you.
Not to be that person.
But that's fine. I am who I am, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I was reading a lot of other things, but then I got tunnel vision when I started reading that, and I have steamrolled through the series within the last, week and a half, I guess?
Yeah.
I've had tunnel vision with it.
Yeah.
But so I've been reading that. Specifically, I'm on the last one that was published, A Court of Silver Flames, which is from the main character, one of her sisters' perspective, at least as so far. And so I've been really wrapped up into that recently. My nonfiction book I'm reading right now, I'm just about to actually finish the one I was reading in January, The Sisterhood of the CIA.
Oh, yeah.
It was a really big book.
It is a big book, though. I did see it.
I have read a lot of fiction the last 2 months, so I haven't read my nonfiction quite as quickly as I wanted to.
Yeah. I have also been reading A Court of Thorns and Roses as a reread for me because I think 8 years since I'd read the first one. And just so everybody can feel my pain, I had to read them as they came out, and I didn't know anything that was going to happen. So honestly, I misremembered and didn't remember so many details, and rereading them has actually been really fun. And so I'm reading that along with Macy because we have a mini book club right now with that series.
We do.
And she's surpassed me because I'm only on A Court of Wings and Ruin. You just took off, and you're very fast at reading. And in between being obsessed with rereading that, I have read a couple of romantic comedy type things. I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter.
I love that book.
Which I think we did talk about on our Valentine's Day episode. I've just recently started White Smoke, which we've talked about, by Tiffany Jackson, which is kind of a YA horror / suspense thriller mystery situation.
I did forget to mention I've been reading, and by I've been reading, I mean I've read the first 2 chapters because, again, once I started reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, I kind of threw everything else out the window. But I started reading the YA book that you actually recommended, Frostblood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've read the first 2 chapters.
I didn't know if you would be interested in that, but maybe.
I like it so far.
Ellie Blake, the author?
I think so, yeah. But we have it, so that's good. And then I did just finish Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. Have that book as well. It's about this main character. She owns a Christmas tree farm.
Yeah.
And she basically needs more money to run it because there's been so many issues with it. She applies to have a social media influencer of sorts come to promote her business. But on her application, she puts that she owns and runs this Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend. Well, she doesn't have a boyfriend.
This is very interesting. This feels very like a Hallmark movie.
Yes.
Yes.
So she asked her best friend, who is a guy, if he would be her fake boyfriend. Not surprisingly, they've had feelings for each other all this time and yada, yada, yada. And it's just about the buildup of that, in addition to her trying to save this Christmas tree farm.
Oh, sounds like a really cute lighter read, which I probably need to do next because I've got a lot of really heavy stuff going on. But after I finish A Court of Thorns and Roses, I'm definitely going to jump into Crescent City by
I've been
Sarah
wanting
J.
to read
Maas.
that.
Just to continue my heavy load of giant fantasy books. I know. So is there anything else that on your to-read list coming up?
I really want to read Lessons in Chemistry. It's been popular for quite a while now, I feel like. And then I've recently read a few books by Susan Wiggs. And so I have one of her books. It's about a baker who falls in love with someone else. It's called Sugar and Salt. I've been wanting to read that. So those are a couple of the other books I have checked out right now.
I know Lessons in Chemistry probably has a whole list. Is the other one, you have that one checked out from us too right now? Okay.
Yes. But I think as soon as I work my way through A Court of Thorn and Roses, in terms of another series I want to get into, I will probably read Crescent City against my better judgment because for years I have tried to not read series that are actively coming out. And then this past spring, I read Fourth Wing when it came out, not knowing it was a part of this active series. And since then, I've really gone off the train rails with the rule I have for myself. So
I do that all the time. I'm actually guilty of being like, oh, here's a book I want to read, reading it, and then finding out it's probably in a series. And then just waiting, and then sort of forgetting a lot. But I digress. Want to read a cozy mystery soon too. I just haven't landed on exactly what I want to pick up yet because that is still my reading goal, is to read a few more mysteries this year. So
yes, I've been working really hard to try to finish The Sisterhood of the CIA because one of my reading goals for this year was to read one nonfiction book a month.
Right.
And so far, February is almost over. And I've only read not even the one yet.
Yeah.
But that one, in my defense, it was big. And I've gotten sidetracked with other series and books.
That happens. When I think back, I'm like, I always get sidetracked by something I didn't think I was going to love, and I need to, like, read all of those.
Well, because also earlier this year, I read the War of Lost Hearts series by Carissa Broadbent. The Daughter of No Worlds, Children of Fallen
Which
Gods,
is also a very
Mother Death
large series.
Yeah, all the books range from 500 to 700 pages. So, it's heavy reading.
Yeah. And you guys can let us know if you are meeting your reading goals for this year, or if there's any suggestions you have for me for maybe a cozy mystery. If you're hearing this message, you listen to the whole episode.
What we really should say is thank you for listening, but as much as we love having listeners, we would love it even more if we saw you at the library.
For questions, call us at 573-756-5779.